Welcome to the budget speech blow by blow, breaking down the budget speech one financial term at a time. Featuring our power panel, hosted by Kookie Kuhle.
Welcome back to the budget speech blow by blow, brought to you by Standard Bank. And it's been quite the journey. The Minister of Finance has just walked off the stage, having delivered the 2025 budget speech, and there's a lot to unpack. But luckily, I'm not alone. Yvonne Freely once again joins us, and we've got a new friend to the show, Zandile Makhoba, who's a consumer economist at Liberty. Zandile, welcome, and how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yvonne, previously we predicted growth, and a blueprint has been set. But overall, how are you feeling, and as a country, how should we be feeling after hearing that budget speech?
You know what, Cooks? When we decided to have this conversation, we really were bracing for impact. And I think after the finance minister spoke, I feel cautiously optimistic, but a little frustrated. And I think that would go for many South Africans. We saw the minister trying to do a balancing act, because it seemed more like a defensive strategy instead of an economic growth play.
I mean, we do feel quite defensive, and Zandile, I think VAT is the key point that people are talking about. There's been an increase, 0.5, and another one next year, so we're already fearing 2026. I'm hearing that South Africans don't want this year to end because we worry about the increase next year. So, simple question, VAT, Hanan?
Well, I think to Yvonne's point, we are balancing a lot of difficult issues in the country right now. And there is really a lot of pressure for us to find money to fund all these things that are happening. So the VAT increased by a 0.5%, much lower than the initial 2% that we were expecting in the initial budget that never happened. But it means that for every 100 Rand of goods that you buy at the store, you're going to add 50 cents to that amount. Initially, it sounds very small, but I think cumulatively, in terms of how we spend, it does add up to the consumer basket and has an inflationary effect. So we will see that starting to creep up in the CPI numbers, and the Monetary Policy Committee might respond.
I mean, we are worried. I mean, it's all people are talking about. But, Yvonne, there is good news. The fuel levies remain unchanged. So there's no rush to join a Lift Club just yet. Eh? No rush yet.
Not yet. But you know how I feel about this, right? I remember what I said, cautiously optimistic. You might want to start setting up and making calls for that Lift Club. Even though fuel levies have remained unchanged, there is still going to be an impact on our disposable income.
Are you going to lead the Lift Club?
I'll come and pick you up.
Okay, that's all I want to know. And Zandile, personal income tax has not changed.
Yeah.
Is that good news, or it seems good for us, but how we should be feeling about that?
So the personal income tax rates themselves have not increased, but what we also saw is no adjustment in the tax brackets. So it means that if you get an above inflationary increase on your salary and it moves you up into a higher tax bracket, effectively you are going to be taxed higher than you would have before. And that might see you go back to the income that you were earning before your increase, or even in a worse off condition where your income is a little bit lower than you had before. So we are definitely experiencing an effective increase in the personal income tax rate by those brackets not being shifted with the inflation number.
So it's not the time to be asking for an increase at work?
It is if you're in the middle.
You had it is.
So if you're at the edge of the brackets, that's where you need to be a little bit cautious about what kind of negotiations you have.
If I want to talk social grants, I mean, for me, that just means my mate grant was very social, but for the country, it's something different. Where are we with social grants after that speech?
So that's a good question, Cooks, because grant recipients are actually the winners of this game. The minister announced an above inflation increase in all grants, from the elderly grants to children grants, childcare grants. And after I did some analysis, I actually realized that even after that, the 0.5% comes into effect, with the zero-rated products that have been added, because we had 21 zero-rated products before. Now they've added meat products, offals. They've also added canned products, which will really alleviate some of the pressure on these low-income households and these grant recipients. These are the winners of this game. And I'm very happy that the government is recognizing that we need to protect the base of the pyramid. We need to give them a fighting chance when we're making all of these changes.
I have to agree with you there, Yvonne. We've had such difficulty with regards to where the economy is with the cost of living crisis, and it's good to see that the government is planning very critically to be able to provide a safety net for those that are grant recipients, while we are still trying to find ways to generate employment creation and growth through other policies which he highlighted in the speech. Yeah.
I want to ask you both a question about debt, because I know there's a few people watching this who owe money to, and talking about public debt. So Yvonne, where are we standing at the moment with public debt post-speech? I know that the public, they are watching, they need key answers.
Right, so pre-game, we were expecting that we would top off at 75%. The actual truth is, based on the minister's speech, we're actually going to land at 76.2%. That's higher than expected. Mm. And that means that we're going to be heavily burdened with debt servicing costs. The minister even said, we're spending more on servicing debt than we are on education, on policing, and on health. We're spending more of our money on paying off debt. Now you can imagine if that was a household, imagine paying more debt, more towards your debt instead of paying for your child's school fees, paying for security and etc. So I think we're really in a precarious position, and it's dangerous levels. To be honest, some economists would say, and some people would say that we are still below the global average, which is like 93%, right? That's very high. But for where we are right now, 76.2% is very high, especially because debt in itself for a government is not a bad thing, especially if a government uses it for the right things. Mm. Because on one side, you'll have the liability, which is the debt, and then on the other side, you have the assets that the government is actually investing in. So you have something to show for the debt that you're taking. What we're finding in South Africa is that there's a lot of mismanagement. There's a lot of projects that don't complete. How many projects have you heard that haven't really been completed?
I'm a project myself, it's not complete.
Right? So that's the main issue, that we don't have much to show for it. So the hope is that the infrastructure budget that the minister presented will this time actually go towards, increasing the assets of the economy and hopefully jog the economy enough to generate jobs, enough to be able to support more wage increases.
There's two things I want to add to that analysis, is that the goal with this fiscal plan is that we are peaking the debt to GDP ratio this year. So the trend should be downwards going into 2026, 27, which is a good thing. We're getting that fiscal consolidation and a serious handle of our debt. In the past, we haven't been good at keeping that promise. But I think definitely we are pivoting in the right direction, to Yvonne's point. A focus on infrastructure and clear goals in terms of really getting the private sector involved as one. And, the minister spoke a lot about the achievements of Project Vulindlela, which are definitely paving a way for us to be more deliberate about those promises that we're making to constituents. So as we start to lay that foundation of good infrastructure that unlocks the economic opportunities, hopefully we'll see that growth that we're hoping for. And we should be able to rein in that debt problem that is emanating.
I'm glad.
You know, I keep thinking about, sorry,
No.
I keep thinking about the electricity, the electricity, the progress that we've made with electricity. The fact that this expectation is that we're going to be saving 20 billion saved because Eskom is now in a better place. So it shows that the government is committed to getting the economy to a place where there's growth, there's job creation, and we see the results, the fruits of the government's labor.
No, I think that's what we love to hear. But also, we hear that there's $1 trillion going into investment, going into infrastructure, and my house also counts as infrastructure, just letting the Minister of Finance know as well. What will the $1 trillion be used for, Zandile? Because, I mean, it is a big number, and I'm sure the public wants to know, like, where is the $1 trillion going to?
The good news is that it's going into the big issues that our country is facing. So electricity, we've had a little bit of a chat about. Water is another one. And the other big one is logistics. So those three components, very critical in getting business opportunities unlocked, giving confidence to investors that we actually have everything in place to enable business to happen in South Africa. But it is also an investment in local municipalities. So making sure that even the grassroots again is properly taken care of. We're starting to deal with the socio-economic issues in the country. So making sure that communities have water and electricity. It stimulates SMEs and local government. We can talk about township economy and so on. So that is good news. Again, public-private partnerships playing a critical role in making sure that that investment is made. And a lot of it could possibly come from local investors, which allows us to avoid high interest rate payments to foreign economies as we focus on this infrastructure project. So one of the very big good news stories here, and we're looking forward to how that develops.
We love the good news, but...
Can I add something? To your point, I think the government is doing the right things. But again, the analysis that I've done is that 1 trillion is close to what we promised last year. And if you really think about it as a percentage of GDP, there's not much movement there. The percentage to GDP is going to be about, it will fall around 4.4%. But then if you look at the projections going forward, that is actually going to be going down. We need to be spending more in infrastructure for us to keep this economy growing, and for us to be able to get into the 5% growth, etc. So I do think we are putting a lot of money. The 1 trillion is a lot of money, but a lot of work needs to be done in managing that money, making sure that we're actually doing what we have set out to do for infrastructure development, but in future, looking to see if we can increase that budget so that it makes up more of GDP to fuel the economy, to actually realize growth.
And it's almost that thing about, we talked a lot about this balancing act, making sure that you're doing enough to avoid big cracks developing, so catching the social element in terms of social grants, and then still managing to invest. So we are at a point of, trying to see what is enough, and are we hitting a critical mass in terms of the infrastructure investment? I'd say yes. It's not enough, to your point. We could do much better. But I think with the Vulindlela project, there's a double confidence. It encourages and inspires the private sector to play a bigger role. And I think we're starting to see that as well in the numbers, where public sector does its part, 1 trillion here. If that's matched on the private sector side, we're a winning economy.
You want to be a winning economy, but there is a little bit of bad news, Yvonne, syntax. I mean, people are devastated. Like I said, we've got the long weekends coming up now. There's quite a few, and it hurts. It hurts. I mean, it's the one loss that we anticipated, but it still hurts nonetheless. But as South Africans, I mean, what can we do in a time like this?
Well, like I said, syntax is always going to be there for two reasons. One, this is the government's easiest way of raising money through taxes. And so you saw a 6.75% in beverages. which I think is going to impact your bride days, long weekends.
Hey.
Instead of 5 bottles, you're going to be down to 1. And also tobacco products at 4.75%. The second reason the government does this, especially when it comes to sin tax, is around public health. Consumption of alcoholic products, consumption of tobacco is actually not good for us. And the more people consume these products, the faster their health deteriorates and the more burden there is on public health services. And so this is the government's way not only to increase taxes, because it's a quick win, people actually do not stop purchasing alcohol and tobacco just because there's a tax increase. They will find other areas to cut from their budget to ensure that they can continue consuming that. So it's an easy win for the government. But also from a health perspective, we need to ensure that services are going towards people who actually need them, and we need to incentivize people to consume needs versus wants. So when it comes to your bride days, I don't know, Cooks, I don't know.
And it comes at a very critical time, when our NGOs have lost a lot of funding, which means there will be increased pressure on the health system to manage what used to be managed by our NGOs. So, Cooks, it's probably a very good time to give up smoking for those who are.
So don't look at me. It'll be less fun, but before we wrap, what are your last thoughts? I mean, it's been a great speech. A lot's been said, a lot to unpack, but Yvonne, Zandile, to the people, starting to you, Yvonne, what can you say just to close it off? Any final thoughts?
Well, from a personal finance perspective, I think it's very clear that our personal finances are our responsibility. If you didn't have a budget, you need to get one. If you didn't have any systems in place to help you ensure that your debt is under control, to ensure that you're spending in the right areas, this is the best time to do it. Just because taxes are going up, just because there will be a lot of pressure, we can tighten our belts, but that doesn't stop us from saving. That doesn't stop us from still investing. There's so many products out there. Standard Bank has so many products out there. In fact, I actually learned about Stash. I didn't know about that. Mm-hmm. A product that helps you save every time you swipe. You can literally ask it to round up into your savings. So it's really important to start looking at those products out there. Make sure that your personal finances are in order, so that even though we're in a really precarious position right now, you're still able to service your debt. You're still able to spend on the things that are important.
On my end, I think, with the expenditure items, we always look at it with a critical eye, but there are some really positive elements that are coming through. We've chatted a little bit about the social grant increases, which are very critical at this point in time. We've got so many socio-economic challenges, and it's a good thing that we've got a safety net in place. The other critical one is the wage bill. So everybody frowns when we see those increases in salaries, which will be rising by 5.5% this year. I think it's a good thing. It's again providing for the working class towards the middle class, which at least buffers those increases in the personal income tax and could be stimulatory to the consumption habits of South Africans to help us in terms of the growth conversation. There were things I missed in the speech. So we've had a lot of environmental pressures over the past couple of years. In the midterm budget policy statement, the minister spoke about a disaster fund, and seemingly there wasn't much information about that with regards to this speech, but maybe the devil is in the detail. The other thing that wasn't mentioned a lot about was the NHI. So a lot of consumers are concerned about what that might look like, how much is going to be spent on it, and how is the operational model going to work. So they will also be looking out for changes there. But overall, I love how this speech balances immediate needs in terms of providing for the pressing elements that are facing us right now, but also planning very well for the future, especially this focus on reducing our debt levels and focusing on infrastructure to drive growth. So I'm very encouraged, and I think it's going to be an interesting year.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Zandile. And for you guys at home, I know that there's a little bit of stress, but at the end of the day, it is a marathon. I mean, it's only March. It's not a long way to go into the year. But there are positives, there are negatives, but at the end of the day, folks, we still got to earn the right to go wide. I mean, we are worried. Tighten the belt, as Yvonne would say. If you don't have a belt, go buy one. If you can't afford to buy a belt, go borrow a belt. But all I know is that from the budget speech, blow by blow, we're feeling positive. We're feeling good. We hope you guys at home have got all the information you need. All you can do now is tackle the rest of the year, build a budget, and hopefully we'll see you here smiling next year as you come back for the budget speech, blow by blow.